This show is brought to you by Female Alliance Media, by women, for women.
Hey there, I'm Mary Angelica and host of Honestly Becoming, your new favorite 5-minute podcast for driven entrepreneurs. Be ready for mic drops and breakthroughs that will help you embody your most authentic, successful, and honest self. I know you're busy, which is why I get right to the point. I condense years of coaching, courses, and certifications and give you the golden nuggets, 5 minutes at a time. Get ready to become the best version of yourself.
Hello, and welcome to the Say It Out Loud podcast. I am your host, Christine Daynard, and the goal of this podcast is to encourage you to live your best and most authentic life by digging deeper and finding connection through vulnerability. I believe we have been taught that vulnerability is a weakness, when in fact it is our superpower. In this space, I will share personal stories and conversations with others so you can be empowered by their strength and inspired to take action in your own life. Thank you so much for being here. Now let's get started. Well, hello and welcome back to the Say It Out Loud podcast with me, Christine. I'm so glad that you're here to listen to another conversation and with another inspiring woman. There seems to be a bit of a trend here, Amanda. This is so great. So I'm here with Amanda Otterman, and I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit more to you, but I can tell you, because you can't see us, we are both wearing pink, although Amanda is wearing this amazing leopard print pink. It's so fabulous. I love it. And as much as I'm wearing pink, mine's just a sweatshirt. So I feel a little dressed down, but I think you look amazing. And you brought your va-va-voom to this conversation. So,
well, the thing is, Christine, even though you feel that you're dressed down, you still look fabulous, and you always look fabulous. So,
well, I love you. I'll take it. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here to chat with me. I appreciate your time. And I would love for you to just give our listeners a little introduction to who is Amanda, and just tell us a couple little things about yourself.
absolutely. So, I am in my 40s. I'll also say I'm going to be 43 next month. So, actually looking forward to that birthday. I find that going into my 40s, I'm actually looking forward to my birthdays a little bit, because it just 40s have been like my life restart for me. So it's been like lots of like positive things have happened in my 40s, and like, so it's like this is the decade is what I'm saying. So
I love that.
Yeah, I recently got married about a year and a half ago. And between the two of us, we have 5 children. And I have 3 from my previous marriage, and he's got 2 from his. And they range anywhere from 13 to 23. So we are busy. I am busy. I have been a registered nurse for 22 years. And now I am also venturing out into the world of personal training, health coaching, wellness. And you'll hear those pieces of the story as we get into further into this podcast. I have my own weight loss journey, mental health journey. So those have all been pieces of my life that have now finally come together in my 40s. And it's funny, it took a pandemic to do it. But here I am. So just that's my little tidbit at this point in time. And then I'm sure you'll hear a little bit more from me about my story as we go on.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned it, because it's interesting. Of all the conversations I'm having, we're talking about the fact that many people aren't having these conversations about how the pandemic has impacted them and what's going on now as a result of the life that has changed during that time of our lives. Right? Like, we've all gone through this incredibly traumatic period of time, and it's impacted us in very different ways. And, I think so many people have found themselves in a place where they're thinking or feeling, I need a shift and a change. I can't keep doing what I've been doing, or I'm not feeling this anymore, and everything has changed and I want to change too. So tell us a little bit about how that little shift started, not little, big shift, really, how that shift started to happen for you. What was going on during the pandemic? You mentioned that you're a
Yeah.
registered nurse, so I can only
Yeah.
imagine how that was impacting you at that time. But maybe
Yeah.
just talk us through that. What was going
Sure.
on during the pandemic, and how did you know that there was a need for you to make changes?
So when the pandemic hit in March of 2020, officially, I guess you could say, we were kind of, you know, being prepped about it a little bit in the behind the scenes before it really hit the media. I worked in home and community care services. I was a community case manager. I had client caseloads of about anywhere from 110 to 115 people that I was responsible for in the community. Basically making sure that, you know, they were getting their home care services, long-term care assessments, in-home functional assessments, just one of the many, many things a care coordinator would do. So um, when the pandemic hit, of course, everybody got moved to working from home. You know, they were telling us it was only going to be a couple of weeks. It wasn't that bad. They put all home visits on hold. And they basically just told us to hang tight. And unfortunately, you know, hospitals are starting to explode at the same time. And what people didn't understand what was happening in the community, because the focus was always on the hospitals. It never got out there as to what we were seeing unfold in the community. So what was happening in the community was basically all of a sudden we had service providers just dropping clients, dropping service, dropping everything altogether because their staff was scared and they quit. I think we lost more than 50% of our home care workforce within 2 weeks.
Wow.
The flood of calls from families coming in, either wanting to stop service themselves, trying to manage their loved ones at home, or saying, oh my God, I don't have any service anymore. You need to help me. And, you know, like, people don't stop getting sick or stop needing help because another crisis is going on. So the crisis in healthcare was already bad. Now we have this, and now we have no service providers. My phone was ringing off the hook. My emails were blowing up. My voicemails were blowing up. And it was just becoming a very big mess very quickly. The shortage just then continued to happen. They put us in a position where we had to call families and say, we're stopping service because we don't have service. So I sat a whole week calling half my caseload saying, sorry, I'm pulling service from you. That was not pleasant. A lot of people were very angry, naturally. You know, and a lot of families were okay, you know, they understood. Um, so again, it was just another layer of what was already a stressful job. As it continued, things did not improve, of course, as the pandemic continued, more lockdowns, more shutdowns. Work conditions didn't improve, they got worse. And of course, there are more people coming onto service. Long-term care homes had completely stopped taking admissions from the community. So now we had a crisis list that maybe was 100 people, now up to 400. People needing to be
Wow.
placed into long-term care, but could not be placed. It just absolute nightmare. And this continued for, well, right into when I decided that I was done. You know, people were understanding at the beginning. Naturally, I think we were all like that, where we all were understanding, trying to understand what was going on around us. But of course, you know, the pandemic fatigue started to hit people. You know, in the world of community health, families were getting burnt out looking after their loved ones. You know, there was still no adequate services in the community. We were really saving those hours for people who were very high needs, not the ones who really needed only a bath, which that's important too, but we had to conserve our resources. Like, you know, as people burned out, people got a little less friendlier. The other piece that really affected me during this time was social media. I started to see shift in some of my friends. Some of them were not so nice, not so caring, not so understanding, angry, and it's all understandable, but I had to shut down a lot of that too on my own in my social media. I felt like that at the time. I that was the only thing I had space for, was just to keep my family going, because my husband was laid off as well at the time, so I was the only one working. So I had to keep my family going, keep the bills paid, you know, try and get through whatever work was throwing at me for the day, hour by hour, and try to continue to take care of myself too, because I know my own history is, if I start letting things go, like my eating habits, my workouts, consuming more wine, that
Which I think many people did during the pandemic, let's be honest.
absolutely,
Uh,
that was going to have more of a negative impact on my mental health and my physical functioning.
Yeah. Well,
So
can I jump in here for just a quick
sure.
sec? Just to
Yeah,
say too, like, I think, I'm resonating with what you're saying. And as much as I wasn't in the health industry, or working in the type of work that you were, the survival component of living through the pandemic was like nothing we've ever experienced before, you know?
exactly.
And I think, what you're talking about is like this shift in, not only is the world feel like it's falling apart, work is like so incredibly stressful. You can't possibly keep up with the workload, and you're in this business because you care about people, right?
Right.
and
Yep.
and so it's like you're trying to take this love for people and this desire to help people, but
Mhm.
every corner you turn you're just being struck with, it was a struggle everywhere, I
Negativity.
think, is,
Yep.
yeah, it
Yep.
was struggle everywhere. So i
Yep.
can i can appreciate, like, I think some people maybe went through the pandemic and didn't have that stressful load on them the same way, because
Mhm.
maybe they weren't in a heart-led or a service-based industry, or for whatever other reason, I don't know. But anyways, I felt like I should
Yeah,
interject and
no,
say
no
that,
worries.
because I can totally relate and understand, certainly that mental health component, right? That
Mhm.
it's like we had to find a way to turn things off
Yeah.
or turn things up for ourselves in
Yeah.
order to maintain.
And I
So
was
sorry.
No, that's okay. And I was at a point too with social media where I was like, I didn't care if it was the news, people I've known for ages, like that kind of thing. If it was shooting negativity or in any kind of way felt like it was just downplaying what I knew, what I was doing on a daily basis, I just shut it down. I
Yeah.
had to, I probably lost a lot of friends. And I know I did. And if anyone's listening to this, sorry about that, but it was really more of about protecting my own mental health at the time. It was really hard listening to even members of my family who were, kind of downplaying what I was saying, what I was seeing.
Mm.
And there was even those outside things that were happening outside of my job that also became a challenge. So it was, like this for a good year and a bit. Um, I even tried changing caseloads at work. I went from a rural caseload, which was really bad, to a city caseload, which was, I thought would be better, but was 10 times worse.
What we don't know when we sign up for something, right?
Right? You just don't know. You kind of think you have a little bit more to pull from when you're in the urban area, but you really don't. It's worse than the rural. Rural people seem to understand that they don't have anything to begin with. So it was a complete gong show. So anyways, fast forward and then at the same time, my wedding's been canceled, because I was supposed to get married in 2020. So my wedding's been canceled. I had to turn 40 in quarantine. My husband turned 50 in quarantine. Like, it's just, all these other things that socially, like, you miss is like, it's weighing on you because now, like, you're sitting in the house with your kids and your partner day in and day out. You're working from home, you're homeschooling, your partner's driving you crazy because he's not working. All of a sudden, I don't know if you have ever picked up on my husband, but he's, he works, but he also has this, side, I call it side gig, but it could be really another job. But he's a high level umpire for fast pitch. And, anytime between May and October, every weekend, he is pulled somewhere in Ontario or somewhere in the US, doing tournaments, big ball tournaments. He's international level. So there's a lot of traveling for him during that time. And I like to go with him, depending where he's going. But that was gone. So that outlet for him was gone. Our regular poker nights with our friends, gone. So like there was these other things that were just like compounded on top of this horrible job that I was doing. So so fast forward to 2021, when things kind of started to settle down a little bit, as we thought, in the world. But for my job, it was now trying to clean up the mess. And the mess just wasn't being cleaned up because my coworkers, about 20% of them, were all on sick leave. They all, so the workload doubled. And then that's when I said, I am done. I was starting to get panic attacks. I wasn't sleeping at night. I had stopped working out regularly because I was just so stressed out and so exhausted. I was shoving whatever I wanted into my mouth because that's all I could do. They were, I was, the wine consumption went up a little bit. The weight gain started to happen a little bit. I was just miserable. I found the summer of 2021, even though I was looking forward to my wedding in September, I was praying that my dress would fit because I was under so much stress and I had bought it the year before.
Yeah.
Oh, it did. Thank God. But, like I had lost my routine, lost myself. I was grumpy. My husband was noticing Sunday nights would come and I would just be, 4:00. He said, like, I went from Jackal to Hyde, like very quickly.
Yeah, well, because it really brought out, like, if you were unhappy at work, but it was sort of covered up by maybe a couple things you liked, or, you had this great social life. And it sounds like, outside of work, you had other things going on that brought you joy in your life. And then when all those things were taken away and you really didn't love the work anymore, not because you didn't love what you were doing, but because the circumstances made it so incredibly difficult to do that job well anymore, right?
Yeah. I felt like I was just a monkey now. Like I felt like
Yeah.
I was just putting out fires. I really did not feel I was in a capacity where I was actually helping people anymore. I felt like that I was just constantly trying to find a solution for the next problem.
Yeah.
Just putting out a fire. I would dread Sunday nights because I knew I started to get into a bad habit of actually looking at my work emails on Sunday nights just to see what I would have to put up with Monday morning. It was almost like I was revving myself up, but like if I didn't do it, I could not open my computer Monday morning. Like I needed to know what was sitting there. So I'd open up my computer and I'd see these emails and I'd see like the 5 to 10 voicemails sitting there. Most of it angry families because they didn't have service over the weekend or something along that lines, or something bad happened. Like, and then the calls actually started to get really abusive. I was threatened a few times. I remember going to my manager telling them that I didn't even feel safe doing home visits anymore, because some of these people were so angry and abusive on the phone that I felt unsafe going into their home alone to actually go and do that assessment.
Yeah, it's crazy how much like all of that impact had on us. And it's almost like we weren't really aware,
Yeah.
It's like we were just so focused on survival and
Yeah.
like, I can't get this thing that I really need and you're to blame. Like not even thinking
Your
how,
fault. Yeah.
Yeah, and not even thinking about how my voice is now impacting you, right? Like how
Yeah,
I've left you feeling like
yeah,
I'm just dumping on you because I got nowhere else to dump, right?
exactly, exactly.
So like I think the human mind, heart, especially when you're in a heart-led business, anybody, we're human. I think we can
Yeah,
only take so much
yeah,
before we just like we literally break somewhere
yeah.
inside, you know?
Yeah, and I had left the hospital in 2015 just because of this kind of thing, and I'm like, "No, I need to shift to a different role where I don't have the shift work and all those other hospital things." And I was quite happy with being away from the hospital, and I knew I definitely was not gonna go back to the hospital at this point.
Yeah.
Not an option. But the abuse that I was getting from families and patients and the lack of support that I got from my own organization was like, it was actually heartbreaking. I felt alone. I felt very vulnerable, especially physically vulnerable, having to go into other people's houses again because they were forcing that on us. They said no more visual. No, they took away our ability to completely do anything virtually.
Mhm.
I was like, why? Like, this was such a good tool. Like, it was effective. It was secure. Like, what's the problem? They forced us back out into the community, and it was just like, for some of these really angry people, I'd rather do a virtual assessment than go into their home, but that wasn't supported. And it was just, the panic attacks and not sleeping and like everything just in my body went to shit. And I just felt horrible. I felt really bad. I was starting to feel physically unwell. And that's when I said to my husband, I know the money's good, but I've got to get out of here. I can't do this anymore. I can't do nursing anymore. Nursing is not what it used to be. And um we had just gotten married. He had just gotten a new job. And I said, like, let's look at our numbers, let's look at our finances, and let's see if I can walk away from this. And we did, and we could. Um, so I started to look, and I finally landed myself in a non-conventional nursing role at an insurance company, which is fantastic. The most supportive organization I have ever worked for. I completely work from home. And I was very quick, actually, that I got an interview with this organization. And I was, from the time I decided that I was done to the time that I started, it was 2 months. And I have been happier ever since from that. So that was the first shift.
So hold on a second. Let me just clarify the
Yep,
details. So you left nursing, decided that's it, I'm done.
yep.
Got into insurance, took on this role, and working for this super supportive organization. So
Mhm.
what happened? Like that was a very short time, 2 months. So what happened, or what was a signal to you? What was a flag to you that that wasn't for you?
That nursing no longer was for me.
No, that the insurance company was no longer for you.
No, it is. That's where I am now.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
Okay, okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
I was
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no,
misunderstanding.
no
Okay,
flags.
I
No, no,
got you.
no
I got
flags.
you. Okay.
I'm in
So now you're
a,
working for this
yeah,
insurance company that is
yeah,
super supportive. Okay.
yeah.
I for some reason thought you meant that in the 2 months you worked
No,
there, you were like, I'm out of here too.
no,
Like, okay.
no,
I was bracing for lots of episodes of this,
no,
story.
no,
Okay.
no, no,
Okay.
no, no. I found my forever home. I have never worked for an organization that made you actually feel like you're more than just an employee, that you're human. They caught on to the effects of the pandemic and have allowed us options of either working from home or working hybrid. They support all of it. And they really have taken a focus to the mental health of the employees and um, work-life balance. It
Hmm.
is like awesome, right? I have control over my schedule a little bit. Like, it is just, it's been so nice. So once I got into this role and I started to get my own self back on track with my health overall and my mental health, I was like, you know what? Now that I have this job, I can actually supplement some of the income loss with something else that I would rather be doing as well, that I've always wanted to do. And I feel now that this is the right time to pursue it. My kids are older. Um, like, I have the actual time and mental energy to do this. I'm going to do it. And that's when I decided to start taking my personal trainer program.
Oh, good for you.
So I signed up, went through my courses, did some specialties as well. And about 4 months later, I was a certified personal trainer. And now I am a partner with a gym in Cambridge. And again, just the right energy, just the right people. The very first gig I got as a trainer was right after I got my certification. And I knew instantly that they were trying to mold me the way they wanted me to be and tell me what I needed to do. And they wouldn't allow me to do any programming or anything like that. And they just kind of treated me like I was an outsider. And I did feel like an outsider because who does she think she is? She's some 40 something that just started doing personal training. I'm not a size 2. Okay. I know you guys, the podcast can't see me. I'm not a size 2. I'm a size 10. So when I went into the first place that I first got my first gig, I was working with people that I could parent. They were much younger than me, and it could be my kids and just the culture and everything. And it just didn't work out for me. And then finally, it was like, I was saying to myself, can I really do this? And the whole imposter syndrome kind of came in. Because I'm like, this didn't work out. And this, I don't know if I can do this, right? I was really telling myself, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm too old. I don't look like a trainer. Can I really do this? And this is where I found Whole Health, where I am now, and the mentorship and the support and the partnership that I have there. They also allow me to bring my own clients in from outside of the gym as well. So it's a fantastic, we do this for you, you do this for us type of thing. So I do teach some classes there. I teach spin there. I teach group strength classes there. But I also take on some of their personal training clients, and I can also bring in some of my own. So it's been a wonderful relationship back and forth. And the other thing about this is just the energy. And it's not like walking into a gym and you get on a machine, and no, it is an actual community that they have built there. And it's a community of women that are strong and that are all on different parts of their health and wellness journey. We just don't focus on the number on the scale. She's brought in yoga. There's meditation nights for women. There's women's circles that we do there. There's sound baths and healing baths, and the amount of things, and women's retreats, yoga retreats, they're the amount of things that have blossomed out of this tiny little gym is incredible. And the energy that comes from there is nothing I've ever experienced before. So now I have all this good energy, not only from my day job, but now where I'm doing my side hustle too. So it's been a complete 180 to 360 from 2020 to 2021 to 2023, where I am now. And it's just because I made that decision where I said, I'm not doing this anymore. There's more out there for me. This is not where I want to spend the rest of my life being miserable. Life is short. I lost my dad very suddenly at the beginning, just before the pandemic started. So that was enough for me to be on the wavelength of thinking of, I am not wasting my time doing something that no longer serves me. I am not putting up with bad jobs, bad relationships, bad friendships, bad energies. Like, no, I'm going to be me. I'm going to be my authentic self. I'm going to go for what I want. And if I inspire some people along the way, so be it. If I don't, fine. But this is how I'm choosing to live my life now. And I am so glad that I like just jumped in with both feet, because I had no idea how either of these jobs would have worked for me. Yes, I call my day job a job, and I don't even call what I do like as a trainer a job. I love it. I love helping people. You know, I actually this morning got I have some virtual clients too. I have one that's right now I'm working with. She's in Atlanta actually.
Huh.
And she messaged me this morning. She goes, "Oh my God, I hit my goal. Like I hit my goal and it only took me 2 months. Like this is insane." And she was just so happy. And, and it's like those types of things, waking up to that just makes you feel so good because,
Yeah, well, the
actually,
contrast, right? The contrast of
absolutely.
coming from like an overworked, high stress, no appreciation,
Mhm.
and in a really weird, crazy extra time of the world, right? In addition to like that job already in itself, and then with the pandemic, and then to see like the kind of abuse that you went through in that role, like unintentional, I'm sure abuse, but still
Mhm.
abuse in that role, to now be on like the literal opposite side where you're appreciated in the environments that you're
Yeah.
in. And I
Yeah,
just want to take a second, Amanda, because I know you have lots to say, because I've
that's
hardly
okay.
talked this whole time, which is totally fine. I love your story. I think this is so beautiful. But what I love about this is that, so first of all, a couple things I noticed. One is your whole energy shifted as soon as you were talking about, the nursing job. Like I could feel through the screen and see it on your body language, the downward spiral that was taking you. Even just going back and remembering it was like, oh, right? Like it's a heavy weight. It weighed on you. And when you finally let it go, I literally could feel almost like you purging it through the screen again, when like when you did it again. You did it today in this call, and I don't know if anybody else could feel that or hear that, but I certainly could. And then you found this job that you didn't plan for. You didn't plan to go into insurance. I'm guessing you stumbled upon it knowing that you wanted to bring money into the family. And
Indeed.
right, right, and here you are. You found this amazing family of people that you could work with that made you feel good. And then you joined this community where you found your people, and you're able to see through a passion that you've had for a really long time. And the reason I'm doing a bit of a highlight reel of what you've just said, is because I think like a lot of the conversations I'm having with people are that many people don't make the jump because they think, well, but they live in this place of fear. Well, what if this doesn't work out? And what if I don't like that job? And what if I do that thing and it doesn't work out? And the reality is, it might not. But the other reality is, depending on how you're looking at the situation and how much you want change, you
Mhm.
can keep shape shifting until you find the right place and the right fit.
Mhm.
It's like, not every, and I'll definitely talk about the physical and mental health component, because not every personal trainer, studio or gym is going to feel like what you have found the feel in where you are now. And what I love is that it's celebrating, we're talking to mostly women in this podcast, right? So what I love is that it's celebrating us as we are, but being a more fit and healthy version of who we are, because the
Mhm.
number on the scale doesn't matter, right? What matters is the things that you just said. And now I'm totally taking control of this conversation,
Oh,
but
that's
like,
fine.
right. But what you just said is like, I am going to be who I am. I'm just going to do things because they feel good for me, and I want to help other people feel good. And honestly, like, I mean, I don't know if I know, but I feel like I know that those are like the criteria for living a great life.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think that so many of us have been missing it because, and maybe you can talk for yourself here, but like, I know when I worked corporately and I was working for this organization, and once I finally left, I was like, how did I stay so long in that? It didn't make me feel good. I wasn't appreciated. I didn't enjoy the work anymore that I was doing there. And now that I'm over here, I can see it, but it took so long to see
Mm.
it. Right.
And then there's that thing of imposter syndrome too, right? Like where you just you don't feel like you're good enough. You don't feel like you can do it. Oh my gosh, you see all those influencers on Instagram. I can't be like that. Or you're afraid of the judgment. You're afraid of the self-judgment. And the other piece that I forgot to sort of mention in here is that I actually hired myself a life coach.
Oh, good for you.
I hired one last fall. As I was doing my second shift last year, I hired one. And like, she made me do the work. She made me go through that imposter syndrome and say, yeah, you can do this. Stop self-judging. The self-judgment is the biggest thing I had to get over, because really the only person I need to be accountable to is myself.
Mm-hmm.
I need that accountability from anyone else, right? You know, she made me do that inner child work, that shadow work. It was just, there were days that I would be on there with her and I would just cry because there's, you know, just, there was just things releasing, like, you know, and you start to see things in your life that no longer serve you. And why doesn't it serve you? And it's because, well, I'm not like this anymore. This is not really who I am at the core. And you start to see your own core values develop and putting out that energy. And like I said, it's like, I am a true believer of the energy that you put out there is what you're going to get back.
Mm-hmm.
And I really focused on putting that energy out there, you know, finding something that works for me, finding where I fit. And I honestly believe the universe gave that back to me.
100%. I agree with that.
And now, like, I'm looking at my life in April of 2023 and I'm like, I'm happy. You know, the finances are good. The money's coming in. You know, I mean, my husband's employed again and he's doing well. You know, I really didn't need that, you know, $87,000 a year nursing job. It meant nothing to me. It was no longer about the money. Now I just work and I enjoy what I do, whether, you know, from the time I get up to the time I go to bed at night. I don't feel that stress. I sleep at night. Like, there's just been so many positive things that have happened. You know, my husband and I have traveled twice since January, you know, so it's, and there's more to come. So like, we're just, you know, all of a sudden just living and loving our lives. And it just doesn't feel like we have anything holding us back now. And it's even reflected in my children. My children are happier now. They're thriving. And it almost feels too good to be true, to be honest, right?
Yeah, but I think what happens too is, like, a pandemic aside, we get into this zombie-like way of life, right? Where we get up and we go to work and we do our routines and we do our thing and we just do the thing that we've always done. And sometimes, well, I would say oftentimes, more than not, it takes a really big shakeup. And in this case, it happened to be the pandemic, for us to go, oh, hold on a second. I've been doing this like on repeat, like wash and recycle, wash and recycle, wash and recycle.
Yeah, like the hamster wheel.
Literally, right? And I'm unaware and I'm unconscious of what I'm doing every day, right? And then all of a sudden, something like the pandemic wakes us up and goes, hold on a second. I'm actually not sure I really want to do this anymore. And to simply fall into faith and to know, and of course, hiring the coach is a great idea, because I feel like, especially through the pandemic, you know, we lost our community. We lost all those connection points. Our friends changed. The way we live, our life was changing. And so to bring somebody else in who can help shine the light on the little corners that we needed a light shine on was super helpful to bring to the forefront where we're really meant to be. So I think your story is one that many people will connect with, and they're probably somewhere in the process, right? But I'll bet a lot of listeners are somewhere along that line of, oh my gosh, I can see myself in her story. And if she can do it, I can do it, right? Like, there's that component, that inspiration that comes from the change that you've made.
It was scary. I'm not going to sit here and say that, like, I wasn't fearful. I mean, here I am taking a job with a almost $20,000 pay cut. You know, my husband hadn't worked for a year and a half. You know, like, we had bills. You know, it was scary to take that initial leap, because I was so used to an RN wage, to be
Mhm.
honest. I mean, for so many years, 20, 21 years, I was used to this wage coming in, and I was the family breadwinner. And I was like, what if this doesn't work? What if, what if? um, but I had to try. I had to do something, because I knew that if I stayed in nursing as a frontline nurse, I would have ended up on a psych ward,
Mm.
to be honest, because
Mhm.
it was literally killing my soul. It was affecting my relationships. It was really affecting how I parented. I had no patience. Like, just, I was a completely different person during that time. It was
Mhm.
really awful. And for
Mhm.
my husband to come out and say something was almost like the light bulb that went on, because he's like, I don't know what to do with you on Sunday evenings anymore. Like,
Yeah. And it's beautiful because he was able to say that to you in a way that you heard it at that time, right? Like he was seeing enough of a change in you that he knew it was impacting you and every level in the household, right? Because that's what happens. We actually don't realize our impact on other people and how our energy is affecting other people. But
Mhm,
eventually when someone can say that, and it kind of wakes us up a little and go, oh my gosh, like wow, that is actually happening, right?
mhm,
And I love how you said how when you worked with your life coach that, she got you to play and like live in that playful inner child side. And I feel like we got so far away from that. It's like we get into this life and we're told that we just need to get out there and work hard and do the thing. And then we
mhm.
get trapped in it and become that zombie like unconscious version of ourselves who's just doing
Yeah,
this thing because
yeah.
we feel like we have to do this thing. And just like what you're saying, and so many people I talk to, it's like the money itself is not the reason. It's not we're not here to make money to live. We're here to
Mhm.
live and make money to help us live, right? Like
Hey.
that's the way it's
Yes.
supposed to be. So if it's literally killing you,
Mhm,
right? Because either it was going to kill you from a physical perspective or a mental perspective, right? In some way, it was taking away the quality of your life and the ability for you to live the life that you wanted to live for you and your family. And
mhm.
you redesigned your life.
Yep, 100%.
That's so beautiful. I'm so proud of you for making the changes that you made because you're right, it is hard. And like it's almost like your body is frozen in fear when you're doing something you don't know or haven't done before.
Mhm,
And crossing over that line of fear, it's like that's what builds this confidence muscle. That's what builds the bravery and the courage, because that's what courage is. It's doing something because we're afraid we're going to do it anyway, because we know that the benefit is going to outweigh the fear, right?
mhm, mhm.
And so that's what courage is. And you built up the courage, you crossed that line. And the
Yeah.
really cool thing is that, and maybe you've already realized this, you can tell me, is that I certainly have found that every time that fear stops me, and then I push myself over that boundary and I build that confidence and that muscle, every time now that fear comes again, I'm like, oh, I know you. I know you, and I
Yes,
know how I've overcome
yes,
you, right?
100%.
And
Yep.
as much as like it's in my head how hard it is, I'm making it harder for myself because I'm telling my head what I want to think. And all these things are swooping around. But if I lean back into my heart and I just lead from what feels good, and I can lean into this fear and just move past it, it'll go. And I'll be on the other side and better things will come.
Mhm. And the thing that I am now starting to appreciate is, because I have done this, I have now opened up myself to other opportunities that have come my way. There have been so many other things that have now just kind of shown up. And the beautiful people that I've met in the last, less than a year, um, is just, it's just all of a sudden, all these things, all these people, all these opportunities are starting to come into my path. And I'm going, wow, even just some of the connections I've made through Instagram um, that have been just so positive and uplifting, and just because I've allowed this to open myself up to this change. which I actually think is now going to benefit our family in the long run. So it's,
Absolutely.
it, like I said, it was really hard to get out of that stuck cycle of, oh my gosh, I went to school to be a nurse. I have to stay here because I spent so much money to go to school as a nurse. Like, why would I want to throw this away? And I'm not throwing it away. I'm using it in my day job. There are certain skill sets required for the type of job that I do that require the nurse brain. But like at the same time, like I don't have the stress to go with that responsibility anymore. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, of course, being a nurse and being a personal trainer and having that extra advantage, that just adds to what I can offer clients. So I turned my nursing into other ways of helping people. And
Mm.
this is how I truly and authentically want to help people. I want people to, reach their goals, whatever that might be, whether it's physical, whether it's wellness, whether it's vocational, whatever. I want people to have something in mind that they want to work towards and be that catalyst for them to get there. And that's what's happening now. I'm starting to see that, and I'm starting to see that in clients, and I'm starting to see that and even in my own family. So it's been a really beautiful transition, I guess you could say. And I'm so glad that I stepped over that fear and went with what feels good. And they always say things that feel good aren't necessarily good for you. Um, but in this sense,
They were lying, because I
yeah, they are.
disagree.
They are lying, because I'm just like, really? Because if you can work with that, like, just do it, just go for it. And if anyone's listening, especially if you're a nurse and you feel like you're stuck, and for me, I was really stuck because I'm a diploma nurse. I don't have my degree as a nurse, so I'm limited as to where I can go as well. Can't do the public health thing. You need to have your master's. Can't teach, you need to have your master's. Can't do this, need to have your degree. Can't do management, need to have your degree. I'm like, I am not doing that. So, if you're feeling stuck, you know, believe me when I say this, there are options. And then if there are other things in your life that draw you, that make you feel good, that you want to do, incorporate that with it. Like, there is always options.
Yeah.
Always.
And I love how you talked about like how your skills are transferable from the career you were in into how you're working it now. And like, I just want to, reiterate, nothing is a waste. The way that we fall into this world and the choices that we make, they all add up to something great, right?
Yeah.
If we're listening to what's calling us and we're listening to the voice inside of us that says, move past this, take
Yeah.
this and do this new thing, nothing is a waste. And I also want to say that your light is shining bright for so many people who are now seeing you doing this thing, and you're lit up from the inside, right? And when you're lit up from the inside, you inspire other people and you show them what's possible. You might have gone through a really hard time, but you found your way through that darkness and into this bright light. And I, for one, can see it. It's written all over you. You're brighter than the sky, right? So I'm proud of you. Thank you so much for being here to tell your story with me.
Thank you so
And
much, Christine.
yeah, and I think
Great
like too,
opportunity.
you are going to help impact so many lives by just sharing what you've been through, and where you are today, and that we may not know what the end is. None of us know what the end is, and really in the world, none of us really know what we're doing anyway. So if we just take the leaps, try new things, amazing things can happen, and you're definitely an example of that. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
And listeners, I hope you've taken some little seeds away from this conversation. There are many, many examples in Amanda's story that, you can lean into and use as inspiration for yours. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to do things crazy and off the wall and totally different than everybody else, but you can do something that makes you feel good. And at the end of the day, I think that's the most important thing. How do we feel? How do we leave the people around us feeling? And often that feel is energy. And that energy is how we impact the world and ourselves and the people closest to us. So thank you for listening and being here and taking part in Amanda's story. I hope we'll see you again next time. You can follow Amanda on Instagram at MyFitFabHealthCoach and follow her journey and see where her next steps take her. Thank you for listening to this episode. I'd like to invite you to hit the subscribe button on this podcast so you'll be notified when the next one drops. And if you like this episode, please leave a review, as it will help others to find this message. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at It's Me, Christine D, or if you'd like to connect about being a guest on the show or talk to me about speaking engagements, please visit itsmechristined.ca. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.